Hello, and welcome to National Whistleblower Day. My name is Mark Worth. I'm speaking to you from Berlin, Germany. Welcome to our panel discussion today. I am with several NGOs that work on whistleblower cases and policy, including Whistleblowing International and the European Center for Whistleblower Rights. And we're very excited to be with you today. We have a tremendous group of people with us today to talk about the unique challenges and opportunities of whistleblowing, anti-corruption, and access to information in their countries and in their regions. I'll give a quick introduction to each of our lovely guests. Pamela Foley is the board president of Whistleblowing Canada Research Society in British Columbia, Canada. Next, we have Gilbert Sandugua, who is speaking to us from Kampala, Uganda. And Gilbert is the executive director of the African Freedom of Information Center. And we also have with us Darko Ivanovic. And Darko is a very well-known video producer, activist, filmmaker with the NGO 35mm and the producer of the news talk show and investigative news show Robin Hood, speaking to us today from Podgorica, Montenegro. So we have people from North America, we have people from Africa, we have people from Europe, we have people who maybe you've never heard of before. There are lots of very famous people who work in whistleblowing and anti-corruption, but a lot of the real work, the grassroots work, the work that is often thankless, but very, very important, is done at the local level, at the national level, and we have three leading people, three thought leaders, three activist leaders who are pushing forward the whistleblower agenda in different ways, but all toward the common goal of using citizens' energy, using citizens' power, using citizens' interest in cleaning up our world, cleaning up our democracies for the next generations to come. So Pamela, let's start with you. Pamela, you have a wonderfully diverse background. You're a nurse, you're a mediator, you've worked in healthcare, you've worked for government agencies, you've had a lot of experience working with the private sector, you have done conflict resolution, and your organization, the Canada Research Society, Whistleblowing Canada Research Society, has a wonderful agenda. Canada, as some folks know, passed the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Act, kind of an unromantic sounding whistleblower law in 2005, which was supposed to cover public employees, protect them from retaliation. The law, and the view of many people, has not worked well. And I guess there's no private sector law in Canada for whistleblowers. Why don't you tell everyone about why you think Canada, which most people might think would have a wonderful rule of law and transparent government and accountability and so forth. What's going on with whistleblowing in Canada, and why aren't the systems working better?
Well, that's a hard question, but not so hard, I guess. Canada, like other countries in the world, are subject to all of the trends towards centralization of power, the growth of their authoritarianism, the growth of inequality, and so on. Just the opposite of what we all expected when we all, engaged and supported our democratic forms of government. But in terms of our legislation, our government, and all of them, not just the federal government, but the provinces as well, have approached protecting whistleblowers in a very tepid, sort of gingerly kind of way. It's like they're afraid. They seem to be afraid to truly share power, because being more transparent is in a way sharing power. And our legislation came into being. It was passed in you're right, in 2005, not implemented till 2007. But like most whistleblower legislation, they were forced to pass it because of a huge scandal. There was a huge spending scandal where taxpayers' money was, being inappropriately given to friends of the party in power, and a public servant exposed it. The party in power at the time, the government fell as a result of it, and so this new legislation was forced on them to really stem the outrage of the populace. They were outraged. So, but the problem was, instead of protecting whistleblowers and people, it looked nice on paper. I mean, when you read legislation, not everybody understands it. So the intent is, to protect and, have integrity and so on. But what it actually did was to suppress and control, and to actually diminish people's options for exposing wrongdoing. You must do it this way, you must do it that way, you have to do it to this person, that person, and if you make a mistake, then you lose your rights. So it is very constrictive, and people don't trust it. One of the basic tenets of having a disclosure body, an impartial disclosure body, such as the commissioner, where public servants can legally go if they can't resolve things inside. The recommendation from around the world, all the experts, was it should be a impartial person, right? Somebody from outside the public service. Well, that was the first mistake. And we believe it was a purposeful mistake. It was a former public servant. And of course, the like sometimes unconscious biases of the most well-meaning person means that, and this has been the experience, the first response is to protect the bureaucracy. And what happens is, I've had recent calls from whistleblowers saying inside the public service that the minute they went to the commissioner, the next day they started being retaliated against by their managers. So that's the kind of thing that's going on. And only a fraction of the public service, not even the whole public service, just a fraction of them, maybe half, if you really stretch it, are supposedly protected. And the other problem is huge resistance to following by the government. They have actually violated the terms of the legislation itself, where they were supposed to review it and improve it and so on. So this is undermining the rule of law in Canada, actually.
Would you say that the biggest problem, Pamela, is the bureaucratic structure and the complex nature of the law? Or is there something else at play that is making the system not work, to the point that I think there's only been 1 or 2 cases even adjudicated at the tribunal in the last 15 years? What's going on?
Apart from the law itself, the other issue is culture. And research has told us that you can have the best legislation in the world, but if it's introduced into an unwelcoming culture, it will not be properly upheld. And on the other hand, you can have bad legislation or weak legislation, but if there's a will, there are things that people can do if they really want to, people with power. So that, I think, is one of the huge problems, is culture. And of course, big impact on culture is leadership. So if your leaders are sending out cues, by saying one thing, they all say, we love whistleblowers, we support whistleblowers, we protect whistleblowers. Of course, whistleblowers are important, but what do? They ignore the legislation. They only talk about supporting whistleblowers if there's a scandal going on. So everybody knows leaders have a huge impact on culture. So the message they're sending out to the bureaucracy is, it's not a priority. We don't care. We don't care so much that we haven't done the legislated review in 5 years. We didn't do it. We were forced to do it after 10 years. We didn't do an independent review, which was legislated. You know, it was done by a partisan group of politicians rather than outside impartial former judges, maybe. So, and also, oh, we're not going to bother to present it to both houses of parliament, you know, like, and we're going to manipulate the rules so that we can't even discuss the report that we did do in parliament. We're going to bury it. So what message does that send out? You know, it sends out, let's do nothing. So the bureaucrats are doing not what the politicians say, but by the behaviors, the message they get from the behaviors that demonstrate what they really want and what they really mean, which is shut them down.
I think that's a rather gloomy assessment, which is sad. I think the people around the world watching, you know, not to generalize, but people probably would expect better of a country like Canada, where we think things are open and fair and honest and so forth.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the problem, is that, you know, maybe people think that if the corrupt actions came out, that people might start to view Canada differently. And hey, maybe this place isn't the paradise we think it is. Thank you, Pamela. Gilbert, you have been active for many years in the access to information field, the director of the Information Center. You have worked on transparency issues for many years. You travel the continent constantly. You have dozens of members in more than 35 countries. Africa does have whistleblower laws in a number of countries. Tell me about, is there an intersection between your work on access to information and whistleblowing, and do you think that they can support each other?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. The whistleblower protection and access to information, or whistleblowing and access to information, are close cousins. Both of them seek to ensure that people have the information they need so that they can hold those in power or authority accountable. Now, in Uganda, for example, which adopted its Access to Information Act in 2005 and Whistleblower Protection Act in 2010, the expectation would be that having these laws more than a decade, the situation would be wonderful, that people would be informed, people would be empowered to hold power accountable. But look, in 2015, which was 5 years after the passage of the Whistleblower Protection Act and 10 years after the passage of the Access to Information Act, the Ombudsman, Inspector General of Government, said that the president was the biggest whistleblower. What does that mean? Because, you know, a president is not affected on a daily basis or is not seeing things that happen, you know, inside offices. But when the ombudsman says that the president is the biggest whistleblower, it says something, you know, about the trust in the law, but also trust in institutions. It means that the ordinary people, the small people in offices who see wrongdoing on a daily basis, don't trust the law, don't trust the institutions where they are supposed to blow the whistle. And when what that means, therefore, is that, you know, somehow the president comes to know and then he blows the whistle. But you know, also in Africa, that the law can be used against the weak or other interests. When someone who has vested interest is whistleblowing, it could be that he's blowing against maybe his political competitors or those who don't support him or her. So the consequence, therefore, will not be making strong progress on the journey to achieve transparency and accountability. So what access to information legislation and whistleblower protection legislations or frameworks should do is to empower people at the base of society, because these are the people who see wrongdoing on a daily basis. But more importantly, these are people who are disproportionately affected when corruption takes place. So in Africa, we have a situation where, not many countries have passed whistleblower protection laws. I think there are less than 10. Also, we have 30 countries which are yet to pass access to information laws. So we have a deficit of laws to empower citizens for good governance. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, as I have elaborated, there is lack of trust in the laws and institutions for whistleblowing, a second challenge that needs to be addressed. The third one is lack of awareness of whistleblowing and how it works, which again, touches on the issue of trust and the information that people should have in order to play a meaningful role in addressing corruption and governance challenges in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. I like systems. I believe in government. I believe that government should have a chance to do what it's supposed to do. But I also like not using the systems. And in all parts of the world that have whistleblower laws, very few of them are really working in practice. Many African countries have an incredibly diverse media landscape, tons of independent journalists and independent journalism networks. I see whistleblower stories every day, or at least stories that with the word whistleblower in the headline in stories coming out of a particular African country. It would seem that would be a safer place for a whistleblower to go, to a journalist, rather than going to the police or a government agency. What would you say about that?
Yes, whistleblowing works on the point of trust. People will not blow a whistle to offices and institutions they don't trust. So to the extent that people feel safe to report to journalists or civil society, that's where they will be going. And like I said, in the Ugandan case, that's why you see very few people are blowing the whistle to the Inspectorate of Government. Now, however, the objectives of whistleblowing will not be served if the state is not responsive. Because then, a journalist will receive, a dossier, will do fact checking, will do background investigation, and, report a huge mess. Like Pamela has said, in Canada, there was a whistleblowing and action was taken and the government changed it. There was accountability in that regard. But if there's lack of responsiveness, then it will be a story on a headline. No, nothing takes place. The situation remains the same. And, wrongdoing continues. Another whistleblowing, another story. And you have a cycle of this, but no material change on the governance situation. So I would say that, yes, it is critical and important that people have mechanisms to report in different places where they feel safe. But it is also very critical that those in authority act on what has come out from whistleblowing, whether it is from media or other places. And if it doesn't happen, then questions of why should be raised, and someone should be compelled, to respond as to why they have not taken action on such important information that has come out.
Yeah, this is a strange phenomenon that maybe people aren't aware, is that quite often the wrongdoing that the whistleblower, that the citizen reports, is not properly followed up upon. That's a different set of problems. And Gilbert, we're looking forward to working more with you and publicizing your work throughout the world. And I'm very happy that the world had a chance to meet you and learn about what you're doing. Darko is one of the top media broadcasters in the Balkans, in Montenegro, which is a very, very interesting country, very exciting country, very vibrant country with lots of activists and journalists and young people, which had a big change in government leadership for the first time in 30 years. A new government came in, which is very exciting this past year. Darko, you have a TV show called Robin Hood. You have a production company producing videos and documentaries. Montenegro does have whistleblower provisions as part of the anti-corruption law that was passed not too long ago. Some people have been nominally protected in some kind of way by the anti-corruption agency, perhaps nominally, you could say. What do you think would be best for Montenegro and the region in terms of engaging citizens? I'm sure you get calls from people with information. What are you personally planning over the next 5 or 10 years or so to expand your messages and expand your work? I know that you're producing your show regionally now, right?
Thank you for reaching out and allowing me to speak up. As a matter of fact, the whole Whistleblower Day thing here in Montenegro was called Speak Up. The show is actually broadcasted across the region in 5 states, and it has a wide audience. Montenegro is a fairly small country, around 600,000 people, but we just managed to overcome boundaries here and produce the show in different languages and send a message out. One of the topics for the second season is actually Whistleblower Day and whatever the relation of the systems towards whistleblowers is. And being in Balkans, living in this turmoil of this corner of the continent is a very exciting. How the curse goes, may you live in interesting times. Well, we do, and here it's whistleblowing is actually kind of beginning to have its rebirth in the society with the change of the government, which is, to be very fair and honest, from my standpoint of view, has not shown any progress so far. But I leave that up to more political experts. But coming to the whistleblower side, here there is a rebirth of those who are willing to speak up and willing to say something about criticizing the institutions, saying that there's something wrong within the system while they're in the system. But you know what? They're losing their jobs. And you know what? Let me just take 1 year an example. Out of 17 cases that wanted to have a whistleblowing protection, 15 of them were dismissed. So just 2 of them passed. And how those 15 have felt at that point, because there are also brave people that wanted to have protection, and there is this law, of course, on the law of prevention of corruption, that is from 2016, fairly new, but the system does not work towards implementing that law, meaning that system is not working towards encouraging people to Safer Words, Patricia Porovic, Melissa Dragovic, all of those people who have spoken about the wrongdoings in the system while they were in the system, either lost their job or they were literally forced to go out of their jobs, just to resign. Why? Because of the pressures. May I just remind you that both of those cases were really protecting the public interest, especially this one with Miloslav Dragojevic. He's the guy that we had this horrible train accident here that a lot of people lost their lives, and he began speaking about how untransparent public procurement system about the system of the brakes for the trains and stuff works, and how it endangers people, etc., etc. And then they firstly ousted him of the job, and then he was returned, and then he was under the huge pressure, and then they admitted that he's a whistleblower, but under the huge pressure that he was in, they just forced him out of his company. So the whistleblowers are discouraged. That's the first thing. And we had this whistleblower day thanks to the organization of the institutions that are mentioned here. But and we gave the rewards for the institutions that were the most transparent. For Ganja Jasovic, he was like this guy that literally destroyed nepotism and cronyism within the institutions of the system that are trading wooden goods, literally forestry. And then we gave the award to, let's call it anti-award, because we gave it, we called it a golden patch, like you have a patch over mouth. So one of the most untransparent institutions was given the golden patch. And aside of this whistleblowing thing, we are focusing on the institutions that are like really close to the society, to the taxpayers that are actually paying them. So going back to your questions, how many rewards or encouragements, whatever you do, you don't have the backup of the system. Yes, you have of those ministries that you are recognized as the most transparent, but all the others are dead silent. So it's having a rebirth, but it takes an immense amount of courage to set sail on this path of liberating the institutions, liberating people within the institutions to speak up and to say that there are wrong things being done within the society, within the institutions. There is corruption, of course, and now the anti-corruption bodies here are fast working towards certain solutions and maybe certain allegations towards even politicians and stuff, and it's very encouraging. But the little guy, the ordinary citizen, the taxpayer that is ready to speak up is still afraid and still cornered. So level of development of institutions is not proportional to the length of the existence of this law. It's been 5 years, and it's hasn't shown a lot of results. There are several reasons. There's poor legislation because this law is kind of has its holes, non-applicable. Certain laws and bylaws are non-applicable, and institutions are underdeveloped. As it turned out, they often prefer to protect lawbreakers while whistleblowers become exposed to various types of pressure, and that discourages. And what do media do? Actually, they shed a light on, they expose those institutions that are protecting the lawbreakers, and NGOs are very crucial at that point. And we combine both sides of the aisle. That is, we combine NGO activism and media. So we're trying to focus on protecting these people, but we are. There's just a couple of NGOs that are doing that, and they can make noise. They can, they can be within the system, within the country. They can have a loud noise, but still it's up to institutions to protect them. And I see what's going on in Africa, and I see what's going on in America. The problems, whether developed country or not, remain the same, but the level of consciousness of the state resolving those problems is different. So that's the point of the whole discussion here. May our institutions, may our systems be more conscious of how the whistleblowing is actually important for the healing of the system. I mean, you know, you have to be nuts and brave at the same time living here than whistleblowing and speaking up, because you know that you're going to lose a job. You know that you're going to be under extreme scrutiny, and you know that your family is going to be under the extreme scrutiny. So for me, the modern day heroes do not wear capes. They're in the offices and they just like decide one day, okay, enough is enough. I'm gonna tell to the public. And what happens? They lose job and they just stay cornered somewhere in the darkness of their living room, being afraid to go out, which is, as far as I'm concerned, a no-go. I cannot allow that. Journalists cannot allow that, and the struggle is synchronized. So whenever you have a problem, you will have assistance from our show, Robin Hood, or whatever institutions within the media landscape. So that's basically it.
Darko, you made so many amazing points and spoke so many amazing truths that, as you say, apply to all parts of the world. But one really important point you made, which is a very strong reality in the Balkans, where we do a lot of work. And I want to thank Darko for organizing International Whistleblower Day with our Southeast Europe Whistleblower Coalition, which was a huge success. Thank you, Darko, for doing that. But the fact that the firewall between media and activism has crumbled or is starting to crumble. It's almost hard to tell the difference in many Balkan countries, maybe all of them, between activism and journalism. As a former journalist, I grew up in my career earlier to think that you had to maintain that firewall. Well, I think those days are coming to an end. And I think it's good. I think it's good. And it's wonderful in Montenegro where the journalists act like activists, the activists act like journalists. What the heck? What have we got to lose? Let's throw the rules out and just focus on impacts.
What am I saying is that damned is the society where the protection of the society itself is left to journalists and activists and NGOs, where the institutions don't give a damn. They don't work nothing about it. They don't implement what are they there for. I mean, you know, you pay your taxes and they
Sure.
don't do nothing. So
Well, it's the classic thing where they have to know that there's more of us than them. Eventually they will learn either the easy way or the hard way. They're going to learn that it's going to come out, and groups like yours and the many great activists in Montenegro and journalists. Montenegro has the pieces. There's a whistleblower law, there's media, there's activists. The citizens have come alive with the election. Hopefully that will lead to some changes. So it's a huge, I don't want to say step because it's not a step, but let's be thankful for what you have.
It's a good evolution. It's a good evolution.
We have people. Yeah, it's moving in many Balkan countries where we do a lot of work. I'm here, actually, I'm in Moldova currently this week, working with activists and public officials on whistleblower protection. It's happening in countries where you might not expect it to happen. We hear about whistleblowing in the United States, maybe in Australia or in the UK. But I wanted to have you folks together to talk about what's happening in your corner of the world. And we're gonna just have some final thoughts. Pamela, just take a couple words and tell people listening or watching, what should they know about what you're doing and what you're working toward? Very briefly.
Well, we're concerned about what's happening in our country, and I I think that I am encouraged by what I see as a growing momentum of people from around the world coming together, just like we are today, because we understand the importance of whistleblowers and whistleblowing to maintaining democratic systems. And they're actually necessary to the functioning of democratic organizations and to protecting our way of life. And we find it unacceptable that they're punished. Not only do they lose their jobs, but they're blacklisted. They often can't get other jobs ever. So our organization believes that the way to change is through education, advancing education on the phenomenon of whistleblowing, this upside down phenomenon of punishment for the right doer and impunity for the wrongdoer. We feel that we share the knowledge gained through research about how and why this happens. And we've talked about how and why it's legislation, it's dysfunctional political and organizational cultures. And in Canada, it's also attitudes in the courts that are more protective and supportive of authorities than the people in general. So we believe that through this process of knowledge and education and informing governments so that they have the information to do their jobs properly, and that they know that we, as the populace who are supposed to be on top of the pyramid, we're the ones who tell the leaders what it is we want and what it is we expect of them. We expect them to treat honest truth tellers respectfully and to act on what they disclose. We do not accept this aberrant, wrong behavior. It's aberrant. It's not something that modern human beings should be doing, destroying good people who are there to protect us. So there is hope in Canada. And I just wanted to say, for one thing, I'm so happy to be part of helping celebrate National Whistleblowers Day in the United States. And there is hope in Canada because one of our provinces has also declared Whistleblowing Awareness Day. And it's the province of Quebec. I'm so proud of them. There's a coalition of provincial and municipal bodies who've come together, and they've chosen the same date, I think, which is the date, March the 24th of Southeast.
Yeah, that's the day that the Southeast Europe Whistleblower Coalition chose.
Yeah. And
so that's the day that Darko had his events in Montenegro.
Yeah,
and,
so maybe you can contact, I'll give you the contacts of the ombuds in Quebec, and maybe you can do something together. And
absolutely.
This is how I think we build this momentum for change. There's an international growth of awareness that we want better from, and we're willing to stand up and work with and help them, help our leaders know how to do what it is we expect them to do. So we're combining research and education along with support for whistleblowers.
Spoken like a true activist. Thank you, Pamela. That's terrific. Gilbert, very briefly, tell the people listening what you're planning to do in the next years. What is urgent for you right now? Very briefly.
Yes, thank you very much. Look, when you look at the Corruption Perception Index, you find that, Africa dominates that list at the bottom. And at the same time, it is, countries that have performed better on CPI, where the quality of life is better. So the truth is that whistleblowers are part of the equation. if countries want to perform well on the CPI, they have to create an environment for whistleblowers, to report and remain to be safe and thrive in their work. Unfortunately, this hasn't been prioritized or recognized yet in Africa. So our new strategic plan, focuses on promoting access to information and transparency and accountability. And part of this is for promotion of both access to information legislation and whistleblower protection, but also promoting this in practice so that the reality can be where people have information they need to hold power to accountable so that they can get the services that they deserve. This cannot happen when people don't have information. This cannot happen when people are not free to speak about the wrongs that happen in public offices. So we invite you stakeholders to join us in implementing our 5-year strategic plan. And I think together we can make things happen.
Thank you, Gilbert. We are going to join you. We're building our international movement. You will be a big part of it as you are. And thank you for being with us today in Uganda. Thank you, Gilbert. Darko, you got 10 seconds.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
There is this lyric from the song of the Doors, and it says, "They got the guns while we got the numbers, so they cannot win." There's more people willing to whistleblow and willing to speak up than there is those within the institutions that are lacking transparency, that are willing to suffocate those voices. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you all very much. I think that, I know that people listening and watching have heard from 3 of the top thought leaders and activists in the world who have devoted their lives to the public service. That might sound cliche, but when you've spent decades, many years and decades, waking up in the morning, going to bed at night, doing this kind of public work, often at great risk, usually very underpaid, or even if you get lucky to be paid at all. It's special. It's special work. It's a privilege to be an activist. I've been an activist my whole life. It's a privilege, it's an honor, it's fulfilling, it's rewarding, all of those things. But it's special work. And I think we all owe a great amount of gratitude and thanks to Pamela, Gilbert, and Darko, and all of their friends and co-workers in their countries and around the world who have chosen, like a whistleblower, to do what's right for society and wake up in the morning and go to bed at night thinking that they've done the right thing. So thank you all for being with us today. Thank you, National Whistleblower Center, for allowing us to have this very exciting discussion today. I want to wish everybody a happy National Whistleblower Day, and get out today and do something good for your world. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next year. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.